Hi there, Will here, and today I'd like to talk to you about a camera that I've owned for almost 8 years at this point.
This video is sponsored by me and my color course. More on that later.
I'll start this video off the same way I have my other long-term reviews, which is to say that I've owned this Nikonos for 8 years, and in those 8 years I've had to buy another 8 Nikonoses because they kept dying on me. The deep irony here is that my first Nikonos lasted almost 4 years until I took it scuba diving for a video on this channel, my Nikonos how-to video type thing, and at that point it unceremoniously left us as a result of having gone scuba diving, aka extended pressure for an extended period of time. After that, I bought an olive green one, mint, unused, in its box basically, and took it for one swim in the Maldives, which is also in a video on this channel, at which point it died, and I didn't go particularly deep. There was no scuba diving involved. I might have gone deeper than one would normally go with one of them just because of the free diving I was doing out there, but it really shouldn't have died after one swim. After that, I bought 2 more bodies because a mate of mine called Angus managed to find a crazy deal on them, and took one of them swimming, and after 2 uses, it died. And the final one is in the process of being used for a video that'll come out on this channel at some point, but I don't have high hopes at this stage. If you haven't watched any of my other Nikonos videos, I should probably make it clear at this stage that I do know how to care for and maintain these cameras, on a user level at least. Every single camera that I have taken out that has died on me has had regularly maintained, if not brand new, O-rings in it that were inspected for flatness and had been lubricated.
And died anyway.
This is because, without fail, all of my Nikonos 5s have died for the exact same reason. There's an O-ring that lives below the advance lever, basically. You can view the little screw thingy that you can take out to have a look at it by popping off the piece of plastic that lives on top of the advance lever. Quite often that piece of plastic will be removed if you buy a Nikonos that's been used by someone, because a part of inspecting it to make sure that it is capable of going in the water somewhat when you buy it is to see that there isn't rust or anything going around on top where the little flathead screw lives. That O-ring is attached to a pin that threads all the way through the camera down into where all the gears live for advancing, and the shutter mechanism, knob, and all the rest of it. And on every single one of my Nikonos 5s, water has gotten in there, and it's not an O-ring that I can service as a non-technician. We'll circle back to that though. First, here's an overview of the camera at large from my friend Hypebeast Will. Imagine a world where you aren't limited by the aquatic sensitivities of a camera. A world where anything you could possibly want to photograph, be it above water or below, is within reach, because you don't have to worry about dampness. Think of the things you could do. Wars were photographed on the Nikonos as a result of its absolutely tanky construction. I forgot to bring a hammer to my off-grid eco cabin build once, but I had my Nikonos, and I used it as a hammer for the day, and it came out with not a singular mark, and the cabin itself ended up looking like this. In terms of features, obviously, it's waterproof, up to 50 meters, which is about as far as most people can scuba dive, depending on what type of license you have and how keen you are on mixing gases and that sort of thing. It has aperture priority, so if you're among the enlightened, such as myself, who have no desire to adjust settings and that sort of thing, you can just set it to A and click. There is TTL flash, if you are so inclined. I personally have never used mine with a flash because it sounds like all extra headache to have to take another thing underwater that, never mind, they're fully waterproof. You've got the option for manual actuation with the M90 setting, which is also your flash shutter sync speed. A bulb mode if you wanted to take some underwater long exposures or something of that variety. Not sure how that would work without a tripod, but you know, it's an option available to you. The ISO ranges from ISO 25 to ISO 1600. You've got an option for a shutter lock so that you don't end up accidentally actuating the shutter while you're clunking around down underwater with all your scuba gear. There's a live exposure display in the viewfinder, which is pretty much the only function of the viewfinder outside of giving you a framing preview because it is not coupled to the lens. There's a tripod plate mount thingy and a cold shoe for your viewfinder accessories and such. All of the lenses are zone focus, which means that you don't actually know whether anything is in focus, which is, you know, even more part of the film photography vibe to me, because I really don't like knowing whether or not I'm actually going to have a blurry picture. There is a distance scale that you can read with the aperture on the lens, but for the most part you're going to be guessing unless you're shooting at f22. In terms of lens variety, the only lenses you can use above water, which why would you want to do that because it's an underwater camera, are the 35mm and the 80mm. I think there is a 28mm which isn't an underwater lens which will function on the camera above water, but the underwater 28mm lens will not give you correct focus. The reason that they will not give you correct focus is because the rest of the lenses are all designed to use the water diffraction as part of the lens. So basically, if you're taking a picture above water, it's like there being a piece of glass missing and nothing will ever be in focus. And that's about it. I'm just getting word that Real World Will is ready to take over, so thanks for that, Hypebeast Will. Now, back to reality. I'm here to tell you that 8 Nikonoses later, the only way that you can safely own a Nikonos, be it a 5 or any other kind of waterproof film camera, is to buy one that's been serviced by a technician and is pressure rated for depth. Because if it isn't rated and hasn't been tested in some kind of pressure chamber, the odds are that it is going to die on you. I was incredibly lucky with the first Nikonos I bought that it lasted 4 years of me doing pretty much anything I wanted to do with it. And every Nikonos I've bought since then has died instantly upon being subjected to water. And this isn't an unusual thing. I think the majority of the people that I know that have owned, do own, or would like to own another Nikonos have gone through the same thing, because they're all reaching a stage at this point where it's been long enough since those O-rings were put in that there's pretty much no chance that you can buy one that doesn't need its O-rings replaced. The place I always keep an eye out to buy one is with Narcosis 101. It's a guy in America somewhere, I think, but there are a couple of other places that I might include here if I can find them again. People have suggested to me that there are spots in Europe one can have things serviced and buy pressure tested ones from as well. Anything besides that though is consistently going to be a complete gamble. A gamble that I've come up short on since my very first camera, which was probably a fluke, to be honest. You might be wondering to yourself, why on earth did I keep buying these cameras that I knew for a fact were inevitably going to flood if I could just buy a pressure tested one? And the plain fact is that where I am in South Africa, it is substantially cheaper to just keep buying ones that are usable and might die than it is to buy a pressure tested one and bring it in here. It also would cost about as much as a pressure tested one for me to send any of my broken ones to be fixed, repaired and pressure tested, so it's kind of a catch-22 there. I'm 8 or 9 Nikonoses deep now, and I've only just reached the point where I've spent the same amount of money that I would have if I'd bought one pressure tested example. If I could go back in time, I'd probably buy a pressure tested example back then, just because it would have been cheaper and easier. They're kind of hard to come by these days. I do try to keep an eye out, but never seem to manage to score one. The next one I buy will definitely be a pressure tested one though. The sad part is that I really enjoy these cameras, and I pretty much exclusively use Nikonoses for 35mm pictures, besides my Mewtwo, which I don't use that much these days because it's just slowly dying in a million different ways. They're very cool and storied cameras, and you can get some amazing images with them. Obviously, the environment in which they're designed to function is somewhat unique compared to the vast majority of other film cameras. But my strong recommendation would be that if you're going to pick one up, try find one that's been serviced, or pick one up that you take into account the fact that you're going to have it serviced if you do want to swim underwater as part of the price. The specific issue I mentioned with regards to the pin jobby that goes in above the advanced lever and the O-ring that lives on it is not the only failure point on these cameras. It just is the one that's kept happening to me. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're keen on buying a Nikonos, please, for your sake and my sake, buy a pressure tested one from a technician. If you'd like to support my journey in buying more Nikonoses and doing other film photography related things, feel free to support the channel by becoming a member on Buy Me a Coffee. Those are the cats who are largely in charge of me being able to put out videos. There is also the option to do my color course if you're curious about how I achieve the colors I achieve in my photography. And that's about it. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the very near future. Think of the things you could do.